You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Yes, hello and welcome to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show. Week 14 recap. I'm your host tonight, Ali. You can follow me over on X at FF Dynasty Grill. With me as always, the band is here. We're staying together forever. It's Kev, who you can follow on X at Dynasty_GOAT. Kev, the regular season is over in the fantasy realms. How are you feeling tonight, and how has your season been?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, together forever. I thought I was listening to Jason Donovan and Kylie Minogue, especially for you, but we're especially here for you tonight, aren't we? It's been a cracking week 14. Like, no matter how it goes for you, good or bad, it's the best week of the season to finally see where you end up. If it's in the playoffs, if it's getting a bye, if it's dropping out last minute. So, yeah, what a weekend it's been. Plenty of highs, plenty of lows. Can't wait to talk through some of the topics we've got for tonight and spend a bit of time with you boys. How about you, Ali? How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Thank you. As you mentioned, it's a fantastic week to find out exactly where you stand. You can lock in the first few picks of the NFL Draft 2024. Them 16 can go off and start researching about the rookies while the other teams focus on the playoffs. And I actually seen quite a few trades go down today already where teams are being aggressive in the playoffs. You love to see it. And talk about teams being aggressive in the playoffs. This man is always in the playoffs. It's Mags, so you can follow on X at Hot Seat Mags. Mags, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, this is a good week to be me. I'm gonna have a not so humble brag, right? Okay, I was telling you guys beforehand. In my Dynasty leagues, I've made the playoffs in 100% of my leagues, and I'm in about.
He's in one
20.
league.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm in 20 leagues exactly in Dynasty League, not including best ball because I'm crap at that. We'll not talk about that. But my Dynasty League's 100% in the playoffs. 50% of those a first week bye as well. Absolutely loving it. Can't wait to crash out in round 2 and all of them.
Mate, this is why we've got you on the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty show, because you are a Dynasty god. You're leading us the way into the playoffs. Yeah, we bow down to you. That is some record, 100%. I mean, that's probably never going to happen again. So well done.
No,
I want to see plenty of championships, and I want that big trophy sitting behind you that was Tom's. Come on, Max.
That's mine. It's mine. I got it. I know Hannah's listening. Stay away.
Right, so on tonight's show, we're going to be recapping week 14 of the Dynasty season. We've got plenty of topics. Yeah, we'll get right into it with Kev. Over to you for your first topic, and this is definitely an interesting one for Dynasty, and we've called it "Protecting the Crown Jewels." Kev, could you explain more?
I mean, yeah, it's self-explanatory. I mean, you just got to look after the most important assets you've got. I know sometimes a guy, if you're playing football or should we say soccer, and you're maybe in the wall blocking the shots, you protect the crown jewels. You look after the good stuff in your nether regions. And I think for a dynasty point of view, protecting the crown jewels, it's all about quarterbacks for me. So we've seen major injuries this season, but it came to light again this weekend. CJ Stroud with his concussion, Justin Herbert with his finger injury as well. He obviously is now on IR for the season, but like we said, all the other QBs that we've seen missing time, Burrow, Watson, Richardson, it's vitally important that teams start protecting the crown jewels. I think first of all from an injury point of view, but also the performance point of view. So I did a little bit of research into the top 5 teams that have given up the most sacks this season. It's no surprise these are bad teams because obviously you play from behind, you make more pass attempts, you take more sacks, but it was by quite a margin. Top 5 teams were the Giants, Daniel Jones injured. Got the Jets, Aaron Rodgers injured. Washington with Howell, he's been sporadic up and down. Carolina, Bryce Young. Tennessee, Will Levis. So while also those aren't injuries, the performance has been massively affected. And I guess the thing I want people to think about for this topic is the teams aren't doing enough to protect their crown jewels, their major asset at QB. So at what point do us as Dynasty managers start changing our views on players in the short term based on that situation, based on if they've got a terrible offensive line at QB? How much is that going to affect, first of all, their performance on that season, but secondly, increase their risk of injury and change how they should be viewed as an asset in Dynasty? So I think it's definitely something to ponder. People say that talent over situation, but actually, I think we do need to start being a little bit smart with it and thinking if someone's getting absolutely panned week in, week out at QB, and it's your most important asset, you have to view that slightly differently. Come to you first, Mags, on a couple of guys that have been in really bad situations, have been knocked about a bit this season. Both young guys, and they're not in the best place. So it's hard to really give a clear, full judgment, I think, on these guys. Bryce Young and Will Levis, two of the guys I mentioned. Just want to know how worried you are about their situations moving into 2025, how much concern you've got, or if you believe talent will win through in the end.
I mean, we also said in school, first of all, don't be a fool, protect your tool, right? That's a classic line, right? So we got to get that one in. I mean, Bryce Young, I may be the wrong guy to talk about Bryce Young. I was never really in on Bryce Young in the pre-draft process coming into this year. I had him ranked below, like Gibbs, below Jackson Smith and Jigba. You better believe I had him ranked below Dalton Kincaid and tight end premium as well. Like, he's someone I didn't really believe in, and I'm not really seeing too much to change my mind. However, you got to give him a second chance, right? This team is absolute garbage. So they're probably going to, change up most things there. You don't know what's going to happen. I know they don't have many more weapons in the draft, but I think you got to give him a second chance with a new coach. We've seen this happen with Zach Wilson, right? Zach Wilson had an absolutely horrible rookie year. His value didn't change that much, really, going into year two, because everyone thought, right, this happens with quarterbacks, we'll give him another shot now. It didn't pan out with Zach, well, who knows, right? But we don't think it's panned out with Zach Wilson. I think Bryce Young deserves that second chance. He did show, quite a lot of talent at Alabama, but I think he's really struggling. So I don't have any shares in Bryce Young. I won't be buying any shares in Bryce Young, but I wouldn't panic sell him either. I wouldn't be like giving him away for a second round pick or anything like that. I wouldn't go that far. So just hold steady with him, because you never know what could happen to these quarterbacks. Will Levis, I like the look of Will Levis, actually. I think he's coming in, he's making ballsy throws. The issue for him in 2025 is probably not going to have DeAndre Hopkins, right? You would imagine. I don't really know what age he is. I don't know what his contract situation is, but yeah, that could be an issue, because right now he's a massive safety blanket. So I actually would take Levis ahead of Bryce Young now. I don't know if that's consensus or not, but I would take Will Levis over Bryce Young right now. Just from what I've seen, I've seen absolutely nothing from Bryce Young apart from just rubbish. He's just been rubbish the entire time. Plus, I'm still concerned. We talked about that sack. Let's not forget, Bryce Young is 5'3", right? He will get injured if he keeps getting sacked that much. That is a lock. That's going to happen. And he's taking more and more hits because he's trying to make things happen more. So I wouldn't be shocked to see Bryce Young on an injury bench in that dreaded blue tent if he keeps doing this, because he's not big enough to take these hits.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting with someone like Young, who I think when you're a small QB, if you're not super elusive like Kyler, if you're like, say, a Drew Brees type, you need that excellent O-line to fully show what you can do. And we're probably seeing that a little bit in Denver as well, with Peyton working his magic, creeping up on the Chiefs. But we'll move on swiftly from that and just come to you, Ali, on just your final thoughts on the how much you'll start factoring in the O-line and how the team supports the QB into your play year on year in Dynasty.
Yeah, so I mean, it can be a big factor. You look at the top quarterbacks, and start with Jalen Hurts. Got an absolutely fantastic offensive line. He's got such an advantage over the rest of the field. Pat Mahomes. These generally, the good organizations generally build with their offensive line, and they're just sensible. So they're not going to put their quarterback in danger, unlike Carolina and Tennessee and the New York teams that have not been great recently. But in terms of how much do I factor it, it's not a massive factor. I think it can be a decider if you are concerned. I think as long as you're still trading in the same tier, you can always move off a guy if you have got concerns. Especially with Young and Levis, they're so young that their value is insulated right now, so it's not going to be a concern. They're going to address the problems. They're going to be new coaching staff that come in, blah blah blah, with them organisations and address it moving forward. But it's mainly sort of the older guys like the Aaron Rodgers, the Kirk Cousins that have got injured this year. They're the ones you have to have a bit more sort of. You have to step back and think about it a little bit more. They're all little factors that can help, because at the start of the year you might not even think about it, and especially if you're drafting your rookie. Offensive lines they change year to year. Like 1 year can be great. They can put a lot of money into an offensive line in free agency and really shore it up, and then the next year it can be terrible. So it's not easy to predict and move about with your O lines, but it can be a factor. It certainly can be a factor, and it's a little tear breaker for me thinking about the offensive line. But these little things can add up throughout the season, because if you look now, and the quarterbacks that have got good offensive lines, a lot of them quarterbacks are still standing, whereas the ones that haven't, think about Justin Herbert and that, they're injured right now. So they're the ones that aren't going to be winning the fancy championships. And you've got the quarterbacks that are still standing, going to be put up the points, while they're playing Nick Mullins or someone like that. It's a reason why Joe Flacco's producing, because the Browns have got a good offensive line right now. So it is a bit of a factor, certainly, but not massive. I would say it's not massive, but you do have to think about it, especially with the older guys.
Just remember as well, best situation in football, 2023 MVP, Brock Purdy.
Yeah, how could I forget about Brock Purdy?
I know, I was waiting for it.
Just look what he's able to do. He's got the time, and I mean, every person he passes it to takes it 20 yards down the field as well. And there's a reason why he's up there at MVP. When he shouldn't be, but that O-line is probably the best. We'll move on to the second topic of the night, and it's over to you, Mags. And this is the big one, because we're thinking about the playoffs. This is trades to win your league. So over to you, Mags.
Yeah, if you're in a league with your trade window still open, and I think most places are still open. A lot of them will be shutting, like maybe right about now. Some stay open the whole way through the playoffs. I don't really. I know some people are adamant that it must close at certain. I don't really mind too much whenever they open and close. Just be aware of whenever it does. So these are just players that we've picked out as players that you can go out, and if you're able to go acquire now, and they will be able to win your league for you. Now, we're not going to sit here and be like, hey guys, go out and buy Christian McCaffrey, right? Like, these are maybe guys that you're not fully thinking about, and actually have got a really good playoff schedule, which is super important as we start thinking, almost in this kind of redrafty way, not going into the playoffs, right, where it's one win at a time. So I highlighted DeAndre Swift as my guy here, because the Eagles, they got a pretty good playoff schedule, especially whenever we're looking at the running back position. Now, I know Swift has been on a slight down. I seen a tweet going out. I can't remember exactly who it was put out the tweet, but it was sort of saying that DeAndre Swift put out a tweet just saying, like, never has a running back one been so disappointing than DeAndre Swift, because they looked at like the total amount of yards and his total amount of points. Bit harsh, I think. I think he's had a perfectly fine year. In fact, he's had a better year than most people even thought he was going to have. But in the next 3 weeks, he's at Seattle. He's against the New York Giants, where, well, actually, we didn't think about Boston Scott altering all his points there, but hopefully he'll be okay. And then his last game is against the Arizona Cardinals. So he's got 3, real good matchups there, and could be putting up real solid points for your team. Could be a league winner, especially that last week against Arizona, right? If the Eagles need that win, which they might, they could really go for it against the Cardinals, who are a bit down in the luck, as we know. So I'm pipping for DeAndre Swift. Ali, are you going to be a massive forward here, or what's going on?
Mate, I'm going for the running back 4 on the year. The running back 4 on the year. Come on, does that say? This is Rashad White. That's got to be a mistake, right? That he can't. There's no possible way that he can be running back 4. Not now Tom Brady is gone and we've got Baker Mayfield in running the offense. No, yeah, he's Rashad White. My God.
Yeah.
And
Stop acting surprised.
this is just purely based off just an insane run. And it's not that, I mean, he has actually looked really good. He's looked much better on the ground, which has been the criticism throughout the season, is that all of his production has come through the air, which you can't always keep that up. So we needed to get it going on the ground, and we finally have. The last 3 weeks has been insane for Rashad White. I think he's been the running back 2. And running back 4 in the season. He's been over 100 scrimmage yards every game for the last 3 games. Just scoring touchdowns against tough defenses. We're against the Falcons that were giving up the second least amount of points to the running back position, and Rashad White had 20 plus points and just looks great. Mike Evans was hardly in the game at the weekend. They scripted him out, which a lot of defenses are going to do. And Rashad White was catching balls and he was running really well. So I just think, without looking at the matchups going through the fantasy playoffs, and I think we've got the Packers, the Jaguars and the Saints, and 2 of them are at home. I think regardless for opposition, I mean, it's pretty juicy matchups anyway, but regardless of the matchup, his snap percentage is up there with Christian McCaffrey. He never comes off the field. So 87%, 87% and 84% for a running back that's getting that many touches. I think he got 27 touches this week, something like 24, 25 last week. He's just given you such a solid baseline, and he's scoring a touchdown every single week now. So Rashad White, regardless of what we think of him for Dynasty for this year, is someone that you could probably take advantage. And if someone has got him and is a bit hesitant going forward, what it's going to look like, I'd pay up for Rashad White because he could win your league this year.
Yeah, I mean, I had to sort of keep the theme, didn't I? When this topic came up, I just thought it was naming best favourite player in the league, so I put David Njoku. So I'll have to stick with that because that's what I put on the show sheet. But I think, all jokes aside, Njoku is a guy that I think schedule is perfect. Sea Green, it's exactly what you want. And if you've got that redraft mindset, this win now mindset, I think he's sneakily been the tight end 7 on the year, tight end 8 in fantasy points per game. So one big week has moved him up, but actually you look a little bit deeper, he's hit double-digit points in, I think, 7 out of the last 8, which is pretty solid for tight end. He's 27, so some rebuilding sides will start getting that itch to want to get 21-year-olds onto the roster. And what you're going to pay for him? A late second. You're paying what you could have got Trey McBride for 5-6 weeks ago, but you've probably not got that same ceiling. That boat's passed. You've missed out on that one. I still really like Njoku. I've been fanboying for years. He's 27. He's still got plenty more left in the game. And when you see him at his peak, when he's doing all the stuff after catch and such an athletic monster, he does look unstoppable at times. He just needs to be more consistent with it. So, yeah, hopefully Flacco stays at QB. Don't know why he's been put back on the practice squad, probably to do with money. But, I think David Njoku paying a late second. And it's, when we say win now, it's not just about winning for this season and then your assets spent forever. It's about buying now and actually getting more out of it than just a little pump. So, yeah, and Njoku can be around for the next 3 or 4 years after this. So, he's the guy to be targeting at tight end if you've missed the boat on some of the other guys earlier on in the season. It's not an ideal time to be doing your business at this time, but also be aware there'll be teams that have finally not made the playoffs, and that's an opportunity to start buying from them if they're looking to go into the rebuild. That's also why trade deadlines doesn't work, because it hampers everyone. It hampers the teams that are trying to do business late, and hampers the teams trying to rebuild. So please get rid of your trade deadlines.
Absolutely sound advice by the Dynasty GOAT, literally the Dynasty GOAT. Yeah, I love the pick. David Njoku, is, I think Neil Maggs pointed out, he's got the best schedule for a tight end, I think, going into the fantasy playoffs. Joe Flacco is just beautiful, because you know exactly what you're going to get with Joe Flacco. He's airing the ball out over 300 yards this past week. They're all going to David Njoku, and Amari Cooper. So if you own any of those guys, I think Amari Cooper had 14 targets this week, and his best with Deshaun Watson was 11. Same with David Njoku, was just, incredible. You know what you're going to get. Can be a league winner because, as you mentioned, you missed the boat on the guys that are going to be successful now and going forward. Those guys are already going to be in the playoffs. So if you do need someone to try and bridge that gap, David Njoku could be the guy.
Will be the guy.
And that, I mean, the pictures of him with his top off. I mean, what a stud. He's unbelievable. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. We'll leave.
Speaking of guys who look good with the top off.
That is the perfect segue to this guy who's an absolute showstopper. We've got Deebo Samuel, the showstopper, and it's been an absolutely incredible ride recently. Call him a superstar. I call him a league winner ultimately. When you look at, I broke down his stats this year and the game logs, and he missed 3 games in the middle of the season. So in the 3 games without Deebo Samuel, the San Francisco 49ers scored 17 points in all 3 games. 17 points, right? They also lost all 3 of those games. It was the run they went on where they lost 3 games. So in the games that Deebo has played in this year, they've averaged 32.9 points. They've also won every single one of those games that he's played. I just think this guy is the absolute glue that holds the offense together. You could say he's the mortar that holds the house, the bricks together, because he's the guy that in the big games especially, that's the guy that the 49ers go to when George Kittle is busting the gut down the field. You got Brandon Ayuk running insane routes. And Christian McCaffrey, everyone has to load the box for him. Deebo Samuel was taken out of the backfield. He's going deep. When he's fit and healthy, he's one of the best wide receivers, plain and simple, in the NFL, in my opinion. But the thing that just annoys me is everyone, Brock Purdy is, I think, his second favorite now to win the MVP. He's not even the first or second MVP on his own bloody team. It's just absolutely insane.
He's not as valuable as Trent Williams. He's nowhere near.
No. I mean, what's going on? But yeah, the last 3 weeks, I just have to highlight the last 3 weeks for Deebo Samuel. He's averaged 30.7 PPR points. I mean, that would be insane for a quarterback, let alone a wide receiver. The next closest wide receiver is CeeDee Lamb at 23 points per game. So it's 7 more per game than CeeDee Lamb. And I made a trade to go all in one of my leagues that I took on this year. I traded away Garrett Wilson for Deebo Samuel and Calvin Ridley, and it got me into the playoffs, and I'm looking good now. I've sacrificed my future, but I think sometimes you have to do it for a guy that's just on an insane run. Season long, wide receiver 16 on the year, which is actually behind Brandon Ayuk, who's wide receiver 13, who's actually producing more consistently, perhaps with a lower ceiling. And people aren't talking about Brandon Ayuk, how good a season that he's actually having. But we've got to think longer term because it's a Dynasty show. So what does his future look like beyond this year? Well, I looked at his contract. He signed a big contract in 2022. Last off season, his big cap hit numbers don't actually start until 2024 and 2025. So I think he's also got some void years on there as well after that. So he's really secure on this team until he's about 30 years old. He's now 27. So personally, just looking at it, if I'm a contender, I'm back in on Deebo Samuel. I want lots of pieces of this offense. Ayuk and Deebo as the 2 people I want to talk about because they're both really good. Can they coexist at the same time? It's not easy to start each one because it seems to be one does better than the other. My approach, I think, going this off season will be to try and acquire the cheapest asset. I mean, I've got a lot of Brock Purdy. I want one of these pieces, so I'm just going to try and go after the cheapest one. So, Kev, what's your approach to Deebo Samuel this off season? He's obviously 27 years old now. Would it be a good time for you to get out and try and sell high? And also, which of these do you prefer in Dynasty? Would it be the younger Ayuk, or do you like Deebo?
I mean, Deebo's going to be 28 in January as well, so you'll get an even bigger discount if you're trying to buy him in the off-season. I think what you tend to find is veterans, their value dips in the off-season when everyone's got the shiny new toys. I think Samuel, what a season. He's wide receiver 11 in fantasy points per game. That's better than Puka Nakua. Had to get that one in there. Who's 12. But I think to answer your question of who you want out of those two, it's both. You want a bit of both because, like we've said before, the volatile assets, 1 week you're going to get one going off, 1 week you're going to get the other going off. I think looking at some of the numbers of the San Francisco players and the deep metrics, it just feels like a too perfect of a season in the sense of how the schedules come together and the matchups. And Deebo's had a little injury, Kittle's had an injury, but I think it's been a perfect storm. I can't see like a season like this happening again. We know that Samuel had that mega season a few back when he was, I think, wide receiver 5 on the year, which at that time was confident he'd never have a season like that again. He's getting pretty close for this run, so nervous about that. But I guess if you're asking me who I'm taking in a startup in next off season, it's at value. It's Deebo because he's going to be a lot cheaper than Ayuk. And then if you ask me who do I want now for the ship run, again it's Deebo. I'm trying to win. In most scenarios, if I'm just thinking blank slate, Deebo. Obviously, it can be team dependent. If you need someone a little bit steadier, that's not going to potentially get smashed playing running back on the ground, then Ayuk is a little bit safe from that aspect. But I think all things given, if I'm playing to win a ship, I'd prefer Deebo in that situation.
Love it. And Mags, would you be trying to buy either of these wide receivers in this off season coming up? Because surely, I mean, the price is going to be fairly hefty. Or do you think you're fairly hesitant because there is a lot of pieces on this offense? They are volatile week to week. So are you a bit hesitant in investing too heavily in one of these guys?
Yeah, the Brock Purdy one's interesting, right? Like, how much do you pay for a guy that isn't he's not the main reason he's, what is he, quarterback 5 or something stupid, right? But that's not because he's, throwing bombs downfield. It's because he's throwing screens to McCaffrey and Deebo, and that's getting him all the points. Like, it's hard buying someone like that at the price he's going to cost you, but at the same time, I said it last week, it doesn't matter how the hell you get your points. A point's a point. So, and he's getting them. So Brock Purdy's a real head scratcher for me. I've got plenty of him already, so I'd be hesitant to invest in some more. Deebo, very pleased with going out and buying Deebo Samuel. I think he's absolutely electric when he's on the field. Ayuk as well, very, very pleased to have Eddie Brandon Ayuk. I think he's a real long-term asset. He looks really solid, every single week. I think he's got a great relationship with Brock Purdy already, and I don't see that going anywhere. I think he'll get locked up. I don't think Ayuk's on a second contract yet, but I reckon they'll lock him up. Well, actually, 49ers are pretty screwed for the cap. We'll see. But I think Ayuk will get locked up there if they get a chance to do that. George Kittle, he's the one that annoys me the most. I don't really want anything to do with George Kittle, if I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm using him and his name and his boom weeks to go and trade someone who I'm just not bricking it, putting in my lineup every single week, because he can win you a matchup, but he could lose you a matchup as well. Like, he's just, for me, he's too volatile to put in there. He's good for best ball, I suppose, but I'm actually terrible at best ball, so don't listen to me about anything so to do with that. But for your dynasty teams, I'm pivoting off George Kittle, and I'm trying to go and get one of these younger guys that are coming through. Like, I might even, depending on how my research is going, you might even look at the lay of the land right now. It is a bit of a risk, but right now, if you have George Kittle, you might be able to sell him for like a sort of early to mid 2024 first, and you might be able to get Brock Bowers. You might.
I mean, that'd be a fantastic move to make. I would say anybody and everybody that's listening, go and do that move if you can. Speaking of volatile assets, we'll move on to Kev's subject. So, Kev, over to you to talk about a guy that's got question marks over his 2024 status for sure.
Yeah, any chance I get to speak about this guy, I like to do it because he's someone I planted my flag on and it's not gone as planned. Justin Fields. I guess the big question is, will it be a 2024 start? Will it be Chicago? Will it be somewhere else? what I wanted to do with Fields is just take a little bit of a step back, first of all, and just think about what it was coming into the league. A college star. I was mentioned in the same breath as Trevor Lawrence. It was literally neck and neck in terms of them as prospects by the consensus and how they was viewed. If we think about real life, it's not really panned out. 8-26 as a starter. The Chicago Bears, they've got Carolina's pick and they're going to be picking at number 1. So I think whilst the Bears are on a bit of a roll and their own picks maybe going to end up nearer 10 than 1, they're going to be picking at number 1. And I think there's talks they might trade down, but I just feel that they need to reset and get that QB on a rookie deal. I don't think Fields has been the reason that franchise hasn't failed. I think he's been put in a terrible situation. I mean, this season they got him DJ Moore, and actually when he's been on the field, when Fields has been in the game as an offense, they've put up 22.6 points per start, which actually, if you total that up, it ranks 11th in the league. It's above Patrick Mahomes, just as an example, who's 12th. So when Fields is playing, he's putting up real life points. He's putting up fantasy points. If we think about him as a player, QB rating, that's a pretty decent barometer of how you are as a passer. He went from 73 to 85 to 91. So each year is improved in a bad situation. Plus, you look at that contract, he's got another year of his rookie deal. He's got the 5th-year option. You look at the landscape of some of the QBs that started in the league right now, he'd be an upgrade over, even if we're just talking real life terms, he'd be an upgrade over a third of the teams in the league easily, in my view, with a lot more scope of how he has developed as well. So I think he's a guaranteed starter in 2024. It's just, I'm not sure where he will start. And that obviously does cloud how we view him in Dynasty. If you think he's going to be in Chicago, is that the worst thing? If he moves somewhere else, is that going to see his value go absolutely insane if he lands in one of these super spots that's mentioned? Like, I'm sure if he goes somewhere like the Falcons, people will drop the knickers at the thoughts of him and London and Pitts and Bijan. So, yeah, I guess first of all, come to you, Mags. Thinking about Fields, there's a lot of uncertainty where he'll play, where he'll start, because he will be a starter in 2024. Just want to know how you view him as an asset, what are his range of outcomes, and based on what we know and what we've seen, does it make him a buy? Does it make him a sell?
It's so hard. His range of outcomes, quite literally, is Dynasty quarterback 1 overall to everybody's favorite backup. Like, literally, that is the range of outcomes that he's got here. The big thing for Justin Fields, he needs to start winning some games. The Chicago Bears were a playoff team in 2020. They drafted him in 2021, and they've been the worst team in football since. Like, that's not good. That's bad reading for the Chicago Bears. And the main difference is they changed the quarterback there. I know they sold some other assets up as well, but he's just not winning games. You mentioned it. What did you say? It was 8-27 or 7-26? Yeah. Yeah, that's terrible. Like, you can't do that. And I think he should go. I think he will go somewhere else. And I'm looking forward to seeing it, because I think he's better than that record suggests. I've certainly seen it with my own eyes that he's better than that. The weird thing is, in college at Ohio State, he was known as this like pocket passer that would kind of like not really move around too much. So he has that in him. And I think, it might not be great for our dynasty teams, but maybe that's what he should maybe go back a little bit to. Maybe he's doing that at the Bears because there's no real options to throw to, but I would like to see him rein back a little bit for his own sake as an NFL starter and start picking some passes a little bit more. It's like the classic scene from, the cult classic movie Goal, like the Newcastle United movie. Have you seen that? Right?
2 soccer references in one show.
Right? And he takes the guy and he's like, I want you to run as fast as you can, like to the line of the pitch. And the guy is rapid. He starts running as fast as he can. And like the old coach kicks the ball and the ball like zooms past him. He's like, "You're never faster than the ball, son." I feel like Justin Fields needs to learn that, right? Just take that on board a little bit. But yeah, I think he should go to Atlanta, and I think it could be really interesting to see him team up with Drake London, Kyle Pitts. I gotta be honest, guys. My answer is I don't have a goddamn clue what his range of outcomes are really. And I think that's what makes him really, really interesting. If anyone's going to sit here and tell you, I know for a fact that this is going to happen to Justin Fields, then I say prove it, because I don't have a shred of evidence to tell you what's going to happen.
Yeah, he's definitely a polarizing guy, and you can make an argument that some places buy, some places sell. So, Ali, let's hear it from you. You're the main man. You've got a really calm, composed nature. You're not too in on field. You're not wild about him like me. You're not a wild person like Mags either. So, I guess if do you go after Fields? Do you think he's interesting on certain teams, or do you think actually there's too much risk here? You've got a chance to win big, but you've also got a chance to lose big. What's your view?
Well, my view is that I am far more on your side of the argument, Kev. And I mean, I tweeted about it the other day that give this man a competent franchise. I mean, we talk about not protecting your crown jewels. The Chicago Bears could have had a quarterback for life here, in my opinion. A guy that's thrown back-to-back 4 touchdown performances this season. I think he's much better than what he's showing. Yeah, if you suck in real life, doesn't matter how good you are in fantasy, you're never going to last. But I just think this guy deserves a chance with all the things that both of you guys have said. The lay of the landscape, the fact there's so many terrible quarterbacks starting this year. He's going to get a chance. He's got that 5th-year option for an extended year. So someone could have him for what, two more seasons on the fairly cheap, not paying, contract money.
These are all things Kev said, by the way. I didn't say any of these things.
I mean, you're right. The range of outcomes are he could be this time next off season, or not the off season coming, the one after. He could be quarterback 5 in Dynasty, or he could be Trey Lance. He could really be anywhere in that. But I mean, I would invest in him, and I think you don't want too much exposure of him. You want more than just in case, just the one share. I think because, I mean, I personally, if you were to go onto Dynasty Planet and look at my quarterbacks, other than Brock Purdy, it's all rushing Konami quarterbacks at the top, because the ceiling is so much higher than all the rest. I'm not going to say it's the same, because it's not, but it almost feels like the year that I heavily invested in Jalen Hurts, where there was question marks on he needs to show something and get the Eagles to the playoffs this year, or he may be a backup. And he came on and look where he is. And I just think, get him in. Just how many organizations are there worse run than Chicago Bears out there? All right, there is maybe 3 or 4 possibly, but then there's not many. I just think where he's going to go, I think the weapons are going to. He's got DJ Moore, he's a decent wide receiver. What else has he got? He's got a terrible offensive line. The defense is absolute trash. Yeah, I just think he's going to be in a better situation. I'd put 75% chance on that happening. I think he will get a move, because I think they're going to reset with Caleb Williams. It's what I would do as well. There's going to be changes, and I just think you need to try and invest. And I think the teams that want to invest in him are the teams that have got safe quarterbacks already. I think you need to have one if you've got a really volatile quarterback on your team. I don't know, like a Will Levis, like a Derek Carr, like, I don't know, someone that might not be, there is a situation where there might not be a quarterback next year, but then don't go for him. You go for stable assets. But if you've already got a decent top 8 quarterback, you've got a Brock Purdy's a quarterback too, go heavily after Justin Fields, because the payoff, I just think the payoff could be massive. So I'm willing to be completely wrong about it, but I'll definitely be investing in a couple more Field shares this offseason.
Quick question: What if the Bears do end up trading away Justin Fields, but they trade him away for the New England Patriots first round pick from this year?
Why?
The Mags. That's just
Yeah.
Thank God that is the team that's going to be picking either 1 or 2, the Patriots, because they won't need to trade for a quarterback. But yeah,
If that happens, I'll unplant my flag on field, I think.
Yeah.
Good question, though, mate. We like to ask the difficult questions on this show. So, talking about Justin Fields, we'll talk about an offense that he could potentially be going to. But we'll talk about that team in the Atlanta Falcons. So, over to you, Mags. And is this an offense that we saw this week? Are they taking flight?
I mean, kind of. I think we're seeing snippets of what they're able to do if perhaps they had a coach more willing to let them do that on a more regular basis. I mean, I'm kind of going to talk about the two sort of main pass catchers that they have with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And we talked about flag plants. Drake London was my flag unplant this year. And unfortunately, my internet cut off while I was mid-rant, and no one actually got to hear it. But I was saying it's not because I think Drake London is a bad player. It's because I didn't think he would get the opportunities that he deserves to get. And now we're seeing him get those opportunities. So I'm really, really pleased for what I'm seeing with Drake London here. I think he'll have a different quarterback. Could be Justin Fields. We never really know who it's going to be next year. I think it will be a new quarterback there, perhaps. I think Kev, you'll touch on that a little bit later. But I'm liking the look of Drake London. And, man, Kyle Pitts, last couple of weeks, you're like, okay, here we go. Maybe not the unicorn talent that we thought he was going to be. I think he's got serious problems separating, actually, in the NFL. He's not doing that anywhere near as well as he did in college. Something he definitely needs to work on, but they could scheme him up a little bit better as well, I'm sure. Pitts has looked really good the last couple of weeks. He's still averaging well over 10 yards per catch in almost every single game. So we know that there is something in there whenever he is targeted a little bit more. So I'm hoping whatever head coach they're going to interview, if they're willing to, which I really hope they are, they're looking at those two players and of course Bijan as that sort of three-headed monster going forward and really start to use them, because I've seen enough out of Drake London to think that he can be a successful wide receiver, high-end wide receiver 2, could sneak into the wide receiver 1 range every now and again even. I've definitely seen enough out of Pitts to know that he can be well up there in the high-end range as well. So progress, but not fully sold or not fully back in. I still think the price you're going to have to pay for those two maybe a little bit too rich for me in a lot of cases, but I'm seeing some progress from them, which is nice to see, because they were both dead and buried 2 months ago. So yeah, taking flight, but maybe not off the ground just yet, right?
Getting a run up.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. What do you think about I say the running back situation. We had Tyler Algier for a while, Ali, right? But this is the Bijan show now, right? After we call him a bust, he listened to that show and he really got his act together.
He did well, or Arthur Smith did, and we finally started to see. I mean, who knew if you give Bijan Robinson the ball inside the 5, inside the 10, he scores touchdowns.
Wow,
that's a good idea to get that guy on the field, right? But yeah, I mean, it's great to see him. I mean, his snap percentage has gone up the last 3 games, 75%, brilliant, 63, 75 and 78%. So this is exactly where you want him. I don't really know what the thinking was at the start of the season with Bijan Robinson, but the last 3 games, he's really come on. He's catching the ball, running the ball really well and being used in the right situation. We're not seeing Cordarrelle Patterson always come in and take the frigging ball inside the 5 or whatever. And yeah, he's the running back 6 in points per game the last 3 weeks. So that's where we expected him to be, honestly, at the start of the season. I know he's a rookie, can't always rely on rookie production, but this is what we thought was a generational talent. He's still got to be for me, the number 1 dynasty running back. And then McCaffrey's outproducing him week in, week out. But this looks really good again now. So if that offense seems like Arthur Smith has taken his medicine and said, right, yeah, fine. This offense is going to run through Bijan, and we're going to limit the mistakes for Ridder. So it seems to be working. And yeah, I mean, the arrow's definitely pointing up for Bijan. I think if there was a buy window for Bijan Robinson, I think we've certainly missed it now.
Yeah, definitely. And Kev, I sort of hinted on it there. I said I think they'll have a new quarterback next year. Do you think so as well? Or do you think Ritter's going to get another shot at this?
Get to talk about Justin Fields twice in one show. It's brilliant, and I get to pan Ridder along the way. I think start of the season, teams like the Commanders, the Falcons just showed a complete lack of ambition at QB to go out and try and compete in the divisions. I think, Falcons specifically, Ridder was never going to be the answer. Like he did a little bit towards the end of the season. He should have put away that division, being honest. No offense, Ali, but it's a weak division. The weapons he's got around him. Yeah, we could say the scheme, etc. But actually, if we know that Art Smith can run an offense that's not that's decent for real life, but not maybe as much for fantasy. But yeah, I just think there's definitely going to be a QB change. I'm locked in on Fields. I know that the GM that drafted him in Chicago, Ryan Pace, he's now on I think he's in director of player personnel for the Falcons. So there's some ties there. The person that brought him into the NFL is a loud voice in the war room over at the Falcons. So that's one to watch if they're happy to trade him in the NFC. That's because that's the type of player that the Falcons should be going for to make the next step. Like if they go after Kirk Cousins, what's the point? Like we know he's a good QB. Is he going to take them to potentially deep into the playoffs? I don't think he is. Like it would have to be a perfect situation. I don't think they're quite there yet. It's too much of a gamble coming off the injury. Fields fits exactly what they're needing to do. He should be still on the target, and it's a little bit like Dynasty when you get these potential players that can absolutely boom. You're not going to get many opportunities. This might be your only opportunity, and it could go wrong, but it could go very right. And if it goes very right, you're absolutely rolling in the money for years. You can sell him. If he hits, just sell him if you don't like him, if you don't like the risk. But yeah, unlucky Ridder. Come on, Fields. Come to the Falcons.
You know, I learned a new Scottish word last week, actually. I thought was brilliant. So obviously I live in Scotland now, not originally from there, but my fiance was talking about, she must have heard Red Zone on the background. She was like, that guy's name is Ridder. I was like, yeah. It's like, you know what a Ridder is? I was like, no. It's like, Ridder's like when you get really red-faced, you get like embarrassed. You get an absolute Ridder. So it's like, I love that. And it has been quite embarrassing, let's be honest, with the Falcons, right?
He is.
Yeah, as much as I'm obviously a Buccaneers fan and the Falcons have a lot of say in how happy I am with NFL life. I don't think Arthur Smith is a guy that likes to take risks. So I'm not sure what the situation is going to be heading into the off season, but all we know is Desmond Ridder is definitely not the guy. He's crap.
Yeah, he's a 2 condom guy.
100%. 100%. And we'll move swiftly onto my subject that's called tough decisions. This is tough decisions heading into 2024. So this is final segment on tonight's show. This is going to be answering the questions that you don't want to. So the tough ones, because we're smart, we're seasoned veterans here. So we'll talk about quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers because tight ends don't matter unless you're playing tight end premium, which Matt Thornton, every league is tight end premium. I'll be taking quarterbacks, and I mean everybody's talking about elite quarterbacks, so I'll talk more specifically about quarterback twos. These are the ones that the unfashionable quarterbacks that you have on your team that are proving really handy right now. There's a league where I've got the buy-in, but I've also got Justin Herbert that's just gone down to injury. So I've got Kyler Murray, and I'm having to start Baker Mayfield for the run-in. So it's not great, but I mean he's been serviceable. So these are sort of unfashionable quarterbacks that we want to talk about what we want to do with these in Dynasty, because a lot of people don't know what to do with these in Dynasty. So you've got your Baker Mayfields, your Derek Carrs, your Matt Staffords, your Gardner Minshew, who's getting plenty of play time. I don't know about you boys, but my team's been absolutely decimated with injuries, especially at the quarterback position this year. It seems to be worse more than ever. I know we always get a lot of running back injuries, wide receivers, but quarterback injury seems to be the worst. I mean, just looking at the list, you've got Aaron Rodgers, Anthony Richardson, Kirk Cousins, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Daniel Jones, Deshaun Watson, they're all picking up season-ending injuries this year, which has been absolutely devastating for your teams. And look at the state of the quarterbacks that are starting this week, coming possibly Nick Mullins, Easton Stick, Danny DeVito, Jake Browning, who's been amazing, Davis Mills, Drew Lock,
Yes! Davis Mills. Get in.
the stud, Aiden O'Connell, Mitch Trubisky. I mean, yeah, it's not great. And it led me to have a few thoughts. And my thoughts are that I think I want to buy some cheap quarterbacks this offseason and just have them on my roster. In previous seasons past, I've always felt like these roster cloggers, someone that I'm not going to be able to turn to. But these are guys that have actually been really, really useful as quarterback fours, like quarterback 3s and 4s. Maybe not this list of quarterbacks, but when you think at Baker Mayfield, I mean, he's been people are going to think that he's going to be thrown to the turf because the Buccaneers, if they don't make the playoffs, they're going to draft their next quarterback. When you think of Matt Stafford, the reportedly mulling retirement last offseason, is it going to happen again? I think this offseason coming, I'm going to take more of a risk and send out offers of second at most, but thirds and fourths. I just think because the next sort of playoff push next year, these guys are coming in really handy. And people like Baker Mayfield, I don't think he's done. I think I'm more than convinced now that he's shown enough where I think he's going to get another team. I know he's played on several teams now, but I just think he's going to get another team come next offseason, whether it's with us. I can see it if we get into the playoffs. I can see him giving him an extension for perhaps another year. Perhaps we draft him as a bridge quarterback, and we draft a rookie. Look at Derek Carr. His contract is absolutely massive. The Saints are stuck with him. They can choose not to play him, but they're stuck with him. And I just think, to be honest, he's been injured a lot of the year. He's been unfortunate and unlucky. I do think he'll come good. And then look at Sam Howell. Sam Howell is a guy that a lot of people don't know what to do with right now. He's been incredible for fantasy. And in terms of real life, I just think he's been much better than actually what people have thought this year. And I think there's a lot more people within the media that are now saying the Commanders are at least now thinking of building around Sam Howell, which has not been the case perhaps earlier in the season. I think at very least he's going to be in a quarterback competition come this offseason. So I do think it's worth targeting him and just taking advantage of some uncertainty. I think it's worth the risk. If I'm going to take a risk on an asset, I'd rather it be a quarterback right now because I think they still have much more value than wide receivers and running backs that can get just thrown to the turf. So yeah, the bottom line is I want more quarterback 2s on my roster than I have been in past because I've been absolutely burnt. And when I'm having to rely on someone like Tommy DeVito to rescue me, it's been difficult. Despite him being 3-0 and being fantastic, seeing his agent on the sideline with the hat. It's great. Absolutely great. But Kev, that's quarterbacks. You're the running back guy. So firstly, an important question. I'm going to have an important question to you and Mags. The first one is quickly, how long can Christian McCaffrey go on for producing these elite numbers? You answer the tough question, Kev.
I mean, I think running back is something you have got to view year to year because injuries, situations change so quick for running back. I think he's rightly a top 2 dynasty running back. Like anybody that's not got in the top 2, like they're telling on themselves that they're rebuilders consistently. He's definitely top 2. If you put Bijan up there with the form he's hitting, I have no arguments with that. But you think about this season, next season. Personally, I wouldn't rather have anybody above anyone other than McCaffrey. I think after that it gets dicey because you're trying to predict too much into the future at a position which is the most volatile. So yeah, I'm happy with him next season. But yeah, just one thing I would say on McCaffrey is I guarantee you when it gets to May, he won't be in the top 2 running backs. He'll be running back 4, running back 5, running back 6 maybe because people see that 2 and that 8 next to his name or whatever it is, 2 and 7. His value will drop until it gets back to the start of the season and he's hitting 25 points a week. And Brock Purdy's just won the Super Bowl. Yeah, I think just if just watch out for that. Just keep that in the back of your mind.
I love it. And talking of sort of older running backs, the free agent market for running backs is going to be really interesting. So I've highlighted 4 guys here in Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift. What is your off-season plan for these guys? Do you try and sell for what you can based on what they've produced this season? Or do you think it's worth taking a punt on any of those guys sort of going forward?
I think you can almost have a blanket approach for all 4 of them. I think the outliers there is probably Saquon, because he's someone that's consistently been top 5, top 6, no matter if he's been injured, if he's on a terrible team, if he's on an above average Giants team, he's always been up there. So I think whatever happens with Saquon, he's going to be fine, because he is a generational talent. The other 3, I'd sell all of them, because you've got to think a guy like Jacobs, his calling card is volume, and if he moves to another team, there's basically no way he can outproduce what he has been at the Raiders when he was like top 5 running back last season. The only way is down with the move. So you're holding him as a risky asset, and the only way his value can go is down. To maintain it's going to be so difficult because he's got to land in the perfect situation. He's a year older. He's never been super efficient. So he's one example. Pollard's playing on the Cowboys. He's only been doing it the past couple of weeks. Swift, as much as I love him, he's on the Eagles behind an mega O-line. Put any of those 2 guys behind like most other O-lines and most offense in the league, they're going to struggle big time. Their value is going to go down the other way, because you've got to think ticking time on the ages, getting up to 25, 26, 27. So yeah, sell running backs this time. If you're out of the playoffs or when you get into the off-season, sell your running backs. If you sell, let's say you sell Jacobs now, you can buy him back in 6 to 9 months at a discount probably, if your situation maintains. Why keep the risk?
Completely agree. And Mags, you're the wide receiver guy. This is my important question to you, Mags. Is Rashee Rice actually any good in terms of fantasy?
Well, he's not crap, which kind of helps me with the rest of my Chiefs players, right? He's not just absolutely rubbish and the end of my entire enjoyment of watching football on a weekly basis. But yeah, Rashee Rice is pretty good, but he screams to me like wide receiver 2. Like he needs somebody else beside him. He's got a bit of the Brandon Ayuk's about him. Actually, the more I watch him, the more I see him kind of play. I'm like, okay, I kind of see what's going on here with him. So I do like Rashee Rice. I think he's a really good wide receiver 2. Ideally, on your fantasy teams, you want to be your wide receiver 3, though. So yeah, he's pretty good.
And secondly, the older wide receivers I've highlighted: Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, and Mike Evans. Any of those guys interesting you for the offseason coming up?
No, I'm not buying any old guys in the offseason. I'll buy them if they're doing well in the season. I'm happy to overpay for them then when I know they're going to do good, but I'm not taking any risk on this cliff coming. Those guys are all over 30. I don't want anything to do with them.
Well said. I think there's a couple in there that are interesting, but again, you can sell these guys to playoff teams and buy them back in the off season when nobody wants these guys. So
yeah,
sound advice. So with that ends tonight's show, where we've recapped week 14, the end of the regular fantasy season. Cannot believe it. So thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow us and subscribe on X and YouTube at Fantasy Wildcard and at Wildcard Dynasty. And join us every Tuesday in season for the show. But thank you once again. Have a good one, and we'll see you again soon.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.